Hello and welcome to Retire Early Lifestyle in America, where we're fixing up an old cheap house without a pile of cash during our retire early lifestyle.
But that's how I help people. I warn them. Can I tell you a little story? Just a really short story. I just want to tell you something. People talk about crime in America a lot, but the crime, it doesn't escape Americans when they go abroad. A while back ago, a grieving mother and father contacted us. And we were somewhat aware of this story, but they contacted us wanting us to help them expose what was happening to their two sons. I was really aggrieved with them because, well, we're parents and we have 3 boys. It sounded like they were successful young black men that decided to go to a part of Ecuador. And before I continue with that, there was a similar story. So it's not just one story, and why I'm talking about it is there was similarly 3 young men that went to Mexico and recently were also murdered in Mexico. Now, the black young men were not murdered, but they were falsely and are false. Haven't kept up lately to see if they finally were able to get released, but they were falsely imprisoned in Ecuador. We did what we could to speak out about it, and we do what we can to expose a lot of wrongs in society as much as we can on this channel. You know, even though I can't go down to Ecuador and personally get involved in trying to get them released and this kind of thing, my heart goes out to all of these parents that are losing their children that go abroad, and that includes the solo young women that go abroad and get raped and murdered. And there's so much of that. There was also another case recently, Angie was reading to me about a guy that was murdered by 4 Venezuelans right there. I think it was in the Chicago subway. And so because people talk about crime in America a lot, but the crime, it doesn't escape Americans when they go abroad. There was also the case of the black guy that went to, people get things in their heads. He went to the black neighborhood in Colombia and he promptly got murdered. I mean, these kinds of things don't help you. They don't help you because you're black and you're going to go where there's no white people. I used to see this on forums, black people telling other people, oh, well, go over here in Ecuador. There's way more black people over there. But I talked to a fellow that bought a beach house, a black guy, that bought a beach house over there in Salinas. It wasn't right there on the Salinas Malecon, which I didn't have very kind words for. It was a little bit further away from there, so it was a little more pristine. And I actually met the guy, him and his family. He invited invited us over for dinner, and he was tired of living there. He wanted on the beach. So people get things in their heads that they want to do a certain thing for certain reasons, but in actuality, what really the way it works out is not the reality of how it really works out. And I believe that we all have different gifts that we're given, and some of us are given the gift of being able to stand up to a bully, physically that is. What I do on my channel is I warn people. Had some of these people contacted me, and this is not a plug for consulting or anything, and I know that we can't freely speak to everyone that contacts you for free because there's only so many hours in the day. I've got to spend a couple hours a day fixing this disaster and turning it into something that my wife can be happy in. But that's how I help people. I warn them. But I started saying I would have warned all of those people, that you've got issues with crime everywhere. What about here? There's crime here. This is a small town, and there's crime even in a small town. But I still love it here. I still love the scenery. I love how everything's super convenient. I've learned a lot from being in Latin America. The way the Latin Americans deal with crime. A lot of people in America are used to, you've got 2 different levels where you've got the people on the low level and the middle level that rely on centralized policing, and then you've got higher incomes that usually spend money on alarm systems and this kind of thing, and they still rely a lot on centralized policing. But having been all over the world and realizing how other cultures deal with crime is they deal with it on a more of a personal level. In other words, they secure their perimeter. Now in this video we're going to open up about our safety that at one point after about 3.5 years diminished in Cuenca. We started getting the consistent prowler problem, which progressed to burglary.
What are you guys doing?
Installing sensors.
What's this for?
Sensing.
What are you trying to sense? The presence of
Intruders.
The prowling increased throughout the city of Cuenca, but yeah, we were going through that. Well, first the landlord built a shed right next to the house, which was later used as a stepping stone, almost a ladder, to get on our roof. Whereas before you had to overcome 10 or 12 foot wall, now you had a lower shed you could just scale, which was only 8 feet, 7 or 8 feet. Once you got on the shed, it was right next to the house. Then now you've only got 3 more feet to go off the shed roof. And so that was the beginning. They started using that to come case the house, because Alex started hearing footsteps, and I started hearing them too on the roof in the middle of the night. And then it escalated from there.
Flat roof. Very easy.
What they were doing is they were planning their getaway, how they were going to grab these tanks and run off real quick. So they made off with a couple of them before we got super wise. I had to order cameras from China, which is, you know how hard it is to get stuff over here. I was able to do that because it was before all the tax increases on shipments.
Well, that's not going to be too easy before.
No, I
Climb
know
up
it.
there, climb up here, jump down, jump back up.
I know it.
I guess we have to cut this again. Sit.
Our fortress.
Scratch my legs.
You see, I walked out here and the first sensor light came on. It's rigged over here in the utility part of the house. Then I came over here and these ones came on. They picked up my motion right away. The prowlers come down from the roof into this part of our yard and steal things that's over here, like tools. They steal our tools, our gas tanks, whatever they can get a hold of.
They secure the perimeter so that there's no entry. I remember one time when we were helping Americans find locally priced rentals. Good luck with that nowadays. And this lady was talking to me. We were standing in the parking lot of a church, and there was a house for rent. It was around 100 yards away, and she's looking at the house and she sees a wall, big tall wall, I don't know, 8-9 feet, 10 feet. And then there's metal gates, metal bars, and then there's razor wire. And she's looking at that going, isn't that overkill? And I thought to myself, if you knew, you wouldn't have said that. It's because you aren't from around here that you said that. And so I'm not saying I need all that in this neighborhood. My thoughts are along the lines of what's happening in America is that we seem to be, and it appears that we're going to a level that also exists in some of these other countries. So a lot of people think they're escaping crime by going abroad, and nothing could be further from the truth. You're just as subject to crime. Matter of fact, when we moved out to Unguilla, which is a favorite countryside spot for the gringos to go to, about an hour outside of Cuenca, because Cuenca, Ecuador is 8,400 feet in the mountains, and it's springtime chilly year round, 60s and 70s, and in Unguilla it's 80s and 90s all year. And a lot of people like that better, and a lot of the Ecuadorians like to be dry, and they like the heat. That's where they like to go. And we moved into a neighborhood. It was real nice and peaceful, and we had a nice hacienda. What about 4 bedrooms, 2 or 3 bathrooms for $330 a month or something like that. You know, whereas the gringos were always paying multiples of that. And so we did great. And the house was up on a little bit of a hill, so that there was a little bit of a steep driveway to come up it. And so you were a little bit above the road down there. And I asked the landlord to put a fence, because there's no fence. There was a big gate, but there was a spot where you could just climb over and come on the property. And I thought, well, that's a weak spot, because I knew, because I'm very observant of my surroundings. And sure enough, just everybody told us that, oh yeah, there's no crime around here. Everything's peaceful. It's really peaceful around here, and it was for a while. But then I started noticing the neighbors' dogs barking at night. And one day I went outside and I looked down by the road, and I saw a teenage local Ecuadorian climbing up a tree that had no fruit on it. And what he was doing is he was climbing up the tree so he could see up above our wall, so he could see on our land. And so the neighbors' dogs started barking, and the neighbors were great. They were just nice people, and loved the Ecuadorians as neighbors. And then one day, after a while, because we lived there for a year, they started putting up a 9-foot fence. And so I talked to the neighbor a couple of times. I started talking to him about his fence. How come he's putting up a fence now? And he said, change. That's the word he used, change. So it went from peaceful to change. And what changed? The gringo moved in? Is that what changed? Their dogs were suddenly barking now every night, and they weren't before. So people don't understand what they're getting into when they go to these foreign countries. And I feel for them. And I'm not saying don't go, because there is a way to go and a way to not go. So we've always wanted to warn people, and we've always explained to them what they should be careful of. And it's the same thing here. I'm going to I'm thinking, implement some of those things that I've seen, in Latin America. And you might say, well, what does it do to the value of the property? Well, I think that's a whole other conversation. When the priority in life is the value of your property, there's something wrong, because the priorities in life should be aligned differently. According to our opinion, the way we live is that our priority should be on more important things. And I think that safety is way more important than money. I mean, look at Celine Dion. How wealthy and famous was she? And she can't change a darn thing about her condition. And she's basically a vegetable. as they used to call them back in the day. And I don't mean to sound derogatory. I'm just saying that money won't save you once you don't have your health or your life.